Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Ahmed, and today we're going to talk about the hydroxyapatite granules. What are they and what it's used for? First of all, hydroxyapatite granules are a kind of biomaterial composed mostly of hydroxyapatite, a naturally occurring form of calcium phosphate. Hydroxyapatite is a mineral component of human bones and teeth that provides strength and stiffness. Hydroxyapatite granules are used in a number of medical and dental applications due to their biocompatibility and ability to stimulate bone development and repair. Here are a couple of such examples, like bone grafting procedures that improve tissue integration, improve bone healing, and restore damaged bone tissue. A combination of events most likely generated the biological response that culminated in hydroxyapatite granule encapsulation. The hydroxyapatite granule is recognized by the body as a foreign material, resulting in an inflammatory response. This is a common immune reaction that helps to defend against infection. It also may be responded as an infection. If the implant is not fully sterilized, infection might arise. Infection can result in inflammation and the formation of scar tissue. Lastly, granule size and shape. The body's typical response to a foreign substance is to encapsulate them. This is achieved by surrounding the material with fibrous tissue. The size and shape of the foreign substance might affect how soon it gets encapsulated. A large or irregular granule may be more difficult for the body to encapsulate, perhaps leading to the inflammation.
Hi, I'm Ishan, and there are 3 suggestions that can help in overcome the problems. The first suggestion is surface modification, such as coating or modification with bioactive molecules. By modifying the surface of the hydroxyapatite granules can help in reduce the foreign body response or inflammation, also promote a better tissue integration with the surroundings. For example, we can coat the granules by using the biomimetic peptides, which can enhance the biocompatibility of the material and the specific cells interactions. The second suggestion is properties design. Instead of using the individual granules, the porosity and scaffold-based design granules are suggested. This is because it can improve the integration of hydroxyapatite within the cavernous bone and minimize the encapsulations. Also, by controlling the pore size, interconnectivity and architecture of the scaffold can minimize the cellular responses and promoting healing. The porosity and scaffold-based design could also facilitate nutrient diffusion, cellular ingrowth, and also vascularizations. And the third suggestion is immunomodulations. By modulating the immune response, it can help mitigate the foreign body response and promoting healing. Also, strategies such as local drug delivery of anti-inflammatory agents or immunomodulatory biomolecules can help in reduce inflammation and modulate the immune response at the implant sites. Also, these suggestions can potentially minimize the encapsulations and also improve the tissue integrations.
So, granular hydroxyapatite, when used as a bone transplant replacement, directly touches the existing bone. This contact helps the granula become part of the bone and supports its growth and remodeling. It creates a strong and stable connection with the surrounding bone, which lasts a long time. This continuous contact is essential for successful bone healing and integration.
Hi, I'm Kohel. There is 5 biological evaluation tests. The first is cytotoxicity, the second is sensitization, the third is irritation, the fourth systemic toxicity, and the fifth is implementation. For the cytotoxicity, the test purpose of cytotoxicity is assess potential toxicity to cell and impact on cell viability. This test determines whether the hydroxyapatite granules have any toxic effects on cells, including evaluating cell viability, morphology, and functionality. For the sensitization, the test purpose of sensitization is determine potential for allergic reactions. This test assesses whether the hydroxyapatite granules can induce sensitization or allergic reactions on animals that have been previously sensitized to the material. The test purpose of irritation is assess potential skin irritation or damage. This test examines whether the hydroxyapatite granules cause irritation or damage to the skin or mucous membranes open direct contact.
So now let's talk about the last 2 biological evaluation tests, which is systemic toxicity and implementation. So the purpose of use of systemic toxicity is to check harmful effects on organs and body systems, whereas implementation assists tissue response and implementation. The method of use for systemic toxicity is to administer granula to animals and observe toxicity, whereas the implement granula into animals and evaluate tissue response. For systemic toxicity, test granula for safety in the body, whereas implantation assess compatibility as a bone graft substitute.
Here's some picture shows the process of each biological evaluation test. As you can see here, the cytotoxicity test, sensitization test, and implementation and systemic toxicity. For the sensitization test, there's intermediate induction phase, topical induction phase, and challenge phase. And also the process of implementation is the implant, CSD, implementation, and specimen. And for the systemic toxicity, there's a test in vitro and vivo.
As a biomedical engineer, the material that I would be proposing is tricalcium phosphate, TCP. What are the chemical properties of TCP? So these are the chemical properties of TCP. TCP is more porous than hydroxyapatite, fast reabsorbing material, biodegradable bioceramic with the chemical formula Ca3PO42, stable at room temperature and a very biocompatible material, ideally used in cases where reabsorption of implant material with subsequent host bone replacement. TCP is also osteoconductive but not osteoinductive.
So I am going to explain the morphological properties of beta-tricalcium phosphate, or known as beta-TCP or BTCP. So the compression strength of beta-TCP is 67.6 to 13.3 megapascal. Physical properties: pure beta-TCP is a brittle white solid whose color may change depending on the presence of impurities. Thermal stability: beta-TCP is a high temperature phase that is typically obtained by thermal conversion of amorphous calcium phosphate or calcium deficient hydroxyapatite above 650 to 750 Celsius. Beta-TCP has two allotropic phases, namely alpha-TCP above 1115 to 1150 Celsius and alpha-prime-TCP above 1430 to 1470 Celsius. Crystal structure: beta-TCP is traditionally reported to have rhombohedral crystal structure, and the beta-TCP itself contains 273 atoms that are distributed among 5 calcium sites, 3 phosphorus sites, and 10 oxygen sites. So the crystal structure of the beta-TCP can be seen at the slides, the picture at the slides. That is the crystal structure of beta-TCP.
Now let's look at the mechanical properties of TCP. TCP has high brittleness, low impact resistance, low tensile strength, and has high solubility that can easily change the local pH. The ultimate tensile strength of TCP is 330.5 megapascal, yield strength is 250.8 megapascals, and the maximum elongation is 11.7%. Here, we would like to compare between hydroxyapatite granular and TCP, tricalcium phosphate, to justify why tricalcium phosphate is much more better than hydroxyapatite granular in bone scaffolding. In Figure A, TCP construct reveal new bone formation with some ceramics and fibrous tissue still seen. More bone area detected as compared to hydroxyapatite in bone staining. Meanwhile, in Figure B, the growth of new bone with a large surface area and an implanted cell-shaped void for the TCP construct. Numerous fibrous intrusions were seen in the hydroxyapatite construct. In conclusion, TCP, tricalcium phosphate, appears to be a scaffold of choice for bone tissue engineering based on the ideal surface for attachment and synthesis of matrix. Hence, we can justify that tricalcium phosphate is much more suitable than hydroxyapatite granular in bone scaffolding for rabbit calabria bone in many aspects such as chemical, morphological, and mechanical. Well, that's it from us. Thank you so much.